You have a stack of books on your nightstand right now. They have color-coded highlights. You have read every single book on the shelf. You have watched every video about productivity. You have mapped out your entire childhood trauma. You know your attachment style by heart. You can trace every anxiety back to a specific moment. You possess an incredibly advanced vocabulary for your own emotional pain. And yet your life looks exactly the same as it did 3 years ago. You still struggle with the exact same boundaries. You still feel the same quiet dread on Sunday nights. You still hesitate before taking any real risk. You are not actually healing. You are intellectualizing your pain. You are using self-awareness as a highly sophisticated shield. You are using it to avoid actually feeling your life. We operate on this unquestioned assumption that acquiring more information fixes everything. But the relentless consumption of self-help is actively keeping you paralyzed. It keeps you in a comfortable and sterile laboratory. Today we are going to look at the trap of obsessive self-awareness. We will explore how to finally drop the heavy armor. You can step back into the messy and beautiful reality of your actual life. We have all been there. You sit on the edge of the bed late at night. You listen to another deep dive audio track. You wait for that one sentence that will finally unlock everything. When we hurt, our most basic human instinct is to seek understanding. We want to escape the pain. We think we can just figure out the exact mechanics of our sadness. We treat our pain like a complex math problem. We think the hurting will mathematically cancel itself out if we just solve the equation. And for a brief moment, it really feels like it does. When you finish reading a profound chapter, you get a rush. Your brain gives you this massive hit of dopamine. You feel a deep sense of relief. It feels like you just did something monumental. It feels like you just climbed a mountain. But the mountain was entirely inside your head. For so many of us, expressing raw emotion was physically unsafe growing up. It was actively discouraged in our early environments. We learned a brilliant survival trick. We learned to pull all that heavy emotional energy out of our bodies. We routed it straight up into our minds. We became master observers of our own pain. We learned to hover safely above it rather than sit inside it. This kept us wonderfully safe when we needed it most. We became the family detectives. We analyzed everyone around us to stay one step ahead of the danger. Now we carry that same survival strategy into our adult lives. We trick our nervous systems into feeling highly productive. We curate a pristine understanding of ourselves. But the real world out there is a jungle. People out there are completely unpredictable. Relationships carry the very real threat of rejection. We stay inside the safe flight simulator of self-help theory. The fear of repeating an old mistake feels like too much to bear. But living entirely in the mind is an incredibly lonely place to be. You build a wall of words that keeps everyone at a safe distance. You isolate yourself inside your own brilliant mind. I want you to realize that your current situation makes complete sense. You are not broken, and you are not failing. You are simply using a brilliant childhood survival mechanism in an adult world. But I want to introduce a completely counterintuitive idea. What if the exact tools you use to heal your trauma keep you trapped? What if your dedicated self-help journey has morphed into a sophisticated form of avoidance? We need to shift the way you look at this problem. I want you to imagine you are studying the aerodynamic engineering of an airplane. You memorize every single flight manual. You understand the exact wind resistance coefficients. You know every single button inside the cockpit. You sit down and take the written pilot test. You absolutely ace it. In your mind, you have the complete identity of a pilot. You know everything there is to know about flying. But you have never actually stepped into a real cockpit. You have never turned the key and tried to fly the plane. Why have you never flown the plane? Because out there in the real sky, there is unpredictable weather. There are sudden crosswinds and the very real possibility of engine failure. The flight simulator of your mind is perfectly controlled. It is perfectly sterile and perfectly safe. What if it was never about you being fundamentally incapable of change? What if the part of you that already knows the truth is waiting? It is simply waiting for you to recognize this hidden pattern. Your endless consumption of psychological theory is a signal. It is an invitation to finally see the brilliant defense mechanism you have built. And this is not just you. So many highly intelligent and deeply sensitive people use this exact same intellectualization. They use it as a brilliant but tragic shield. We carry around this crushing weight everywhere we go. It is perfectionism wearing a convincing therapist mask. It tells us we must reach a flawless state of emotional regulation first. We believe we must be fully healed before we are allowed to take a step forward. I want you to discover what happens when you release that impossible standard. Take a deep breath right now and let your body actually breathe. Awaken to the reality that you do not need to be completely healed to live. Allow yourself to feel the sudden lightness of dropping that heavy bag. Drop the clinical terms and the therapy speak. The difficult emotions you feel are not proof of failure. When you think about taking real action, the fear is simply information. It is the quiet truth trying to guide you. This moment right now can be your turning point. You can return to your life exactly as you are. Your inner voice does not need another podcast to be valid. You do not need another masterclass to prove your worth. You are ready to step out onto the tarmac. You are ready to fly the plane. You just have to be willing to feel the turbulence. The turbulence is where the actual living happens. You might notice a strange and quiet space opening up in your day. This is the space where the endless analyzing used to be. In that newly created space, a very different question will start to surface. Once you stop trying to fix yourself, you can ask who you actually want to become. You can begin to move from endless preparation into actual participation. You have gathered enough blueprints for a lifetime. Now it is time to finally build the house. To actually break this cycle, we have to understand the psychological mechanics. We must understand why your brain desperately wants to keep you in that flight simulator. It comes down to a very real and very powerful chemical loop. When you finish reading a profound chapter on psychology, your brain reacts. When you suddenly connect the dots on why you push romantic partners away, something happens. Your biological reward system fires off a massive signal. Your brain releases a powerful rush of dopamine. This tricks your nervous system into feeling highly productive and successful. Your brain treats that psychological insight exactly like finding vital food in the wild. Your neurochemistry fires off powerful signals telling you that you accomplished something monumental. The fascinating and dangerous part is how your brain interprets this event. It does not differentiate between an internal cognitive realization and an external physical action. Your brain simply does not care that none of this growth happened in the physical world. It registers reading psychological data exactly like an actual physical accomplishment. This is the dopamine illusion. Overthinking and endlessly consuming information successfully masquerade as genuine diligence. You are extracting the emotional reward of a completed task. But you are completely avoiding the messy and unpredictable reality of real-world risk. This is the ultimate form of procrastination rooted deeply in fear. It is a phenomenon known as premature completion. You visualize yourself as a disciplined and successful individual. Your brain internalizes that identity and feels the work is already done. This creates a false sense of identity where you believe you are improving. Meanwhile, your physical reality remains entirely stagnant. Knowing the precise clinical name of your wound is profoundly different from healing it. If you stay inside the laboratory of self-reflection, you build a barrier. You analyze every variable to ensure you never make a mistake. You accidentally build a wall that prevents you from participating in your own life. The fear of making the wrong choice becomes incredibly overwhelming. The terror of repeating an old, painful pattern paralyzes you completely. This leads directly to the ultimate failure. Making no choice at all is the absolute worst choice you can make. You try to build an intellectual fortress so high that pain can never reach you. You choose the sterile safety of the laboratory over the vibrant reality of the jungle. If you spend your entire life preparing to live perfectly, you sacrifice everything. You sacrifice the only opportunity you have to live authentically. We have to move from the laboratory out into the field. Genuine healing does not mean becoming bulletproof. Let that truth wash over you for a moment. Healing does not mean you will never feel triggered again. It does not mean you will never feel anxious or jealous or deeply afraid. The idea that you can entirely eradicate negative emotion is a fantasy. It is an illusion sold by the commercial self-improvement industry. True healing is entirely about your ongoing relationship to the fear. It means learning to take messy and profoundly imperfect action. You do this while carrying your fears right alongside you. You do not wait for the fear to vanish. You tuck the anxiety under your arm and acknowledge it is there. You acknowledge it is sitting right there next to you, and you take the step anyway. We need a simple reflective framework to transition from theory into reality. Let us call it stepping onto the tarmac. Step 1 is to pinpoint the avoidance. Identify exactly what real-world task your self-help consumption is delaying. Is it a difficult boundary-setting text message? Is it applying for a new job? Is it going to a social event where you might feel awkward? Name the specific action you have been relentlessly analyzing. Step 2 is the 90-second anchor. Pause the endless analysis and drop down out of your head. Go into your physical body and intentionally allow yourself to feel the uncomfortable emotion. Feel the terrifying emotion of that impending action for exactly 90 seconds. Do not solve it. Just physically hold it. Step 3 is the messy execution. You cannot think your way out of an overthinking spiral. Action is the absolute only exit. Take one small and immediate and wildly imperfect action in the real world today. Action collapses the infinite loop of variables into a single tangible outcome. It is only through that actual real-world friction that your nervous system learns. It finally learns that it is safe to connect and safe to fail. You stand at the threshold right now. You stand between gathering tools and actually building the house. From this exact moment forward, the paradigm shifts entirely. Your intellectual preparation phase is officially over. Today you are implementing a new foundational rule for your life. You will replace 1 hour of theoretical study with 1 moment of tangible friction. You must close the book. You must pause the audio track. You must step out of the sterile laboratory of your own mind. Make the messy decision you have been analyzing for weeks. Send the email you have meticulously drafted 10 times. Allow yourself to go to the social event and be entirely unpolished. Let your voice shake when you speak your truth. Let the conversation be profoundly awkward and uncomfortable. That shaking and that exact awkward friction is where permanent healing actually occurs. Start tracking your lived courage instead of your accumulated data. You are no longer someone who obsessively hoards blueprints. You are someone who builds in the rain. The ultimate tragedy of the healing trap is convincing ourselves we are preparing. We think the psychological awareness is the final destination. But awareness was only ever meant to be a map. And a map is completely useless if you never leave the room. If you spend your entire life preparing to live perfectly, you sacrifice living authentically. You might feel a heavy protective resistance in your chest right now. That physical resistance is completely normal. It is the old armor fighting to stay on. But what if the beautifully imperfect version of you is already entirely capable? Imagine what would happen if you simply stopped waiting for the perfect guarantee. You might notice a strange and quiet space opening up in your day. In that newly created space, a very different question will start to surface. Once you stop trying to fix yourself, who do you actually want to become? We will explore the architecture of that newly found identity very soon. Take a deep breath. Step into the friction.